Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Data Plus Women Zurich event. Today we are very international, and I will let Olivia introduce in some minutes a wonderful speaker that we have, but some word about us. So Data Plus Women is a networking group to promote women working with or around data. So it's always plus women, not minus men. Men are welcome to join. But we have only female speaker, except like very rare exception. If you are interested to speak, please contact us. We are always searching for a good speaker for our audience. So yes, that is Data Plus Women. Sometimes we do like a virtual physical event. The majority of the time we do a virtual, but from time to time we do also physical event. And this team is very big, like you can see. It's Olivia and myself, but small but strong team. So yes, my some word about myself. I'm a passionate about Tableau, but Data Plus Women is not about Tableau. It's about people, female, working with or on data. And I'm based in Zurich, the majority of the time, and I'm also co-leading an analytic Tableau user group. And I have the chance to do that with Olivia. Olivia is working at Meta. She's a data scientist, very good data scientist, and she has a lot of patients, and one of her patients is like traveling around the world. And her location is usually Zurich, but sometimes it can also be like somewhere close to the ocean. Yes. And I will let Olivia introduce the nice event that we have today.
All right. Thank you so much, Annabelle, for the nice introduction. And hi to everyone from my side. My name is Olivia, as you already know. I hope you're joining from all over the world. So maybe it might be good morning, or for me, it's good evening. What we will do today is we will have the pleasure to get to know Angela, and Angela will talk us through how to transition into any role in tech and how to actually take our experience or our backgrounds and actually start a journey in other roles that we wish for. So I'm really happy to hear anything about how we can take our career to the next step. And she herself also has a remarkable journey. So a few words about Angela before we dig into the topic. Angela already pivoted a few times in her career, and she had different jobs from PwC into tech, into Stitch Fix, and is now self-employed at Angela Lau Coaching, and is actually helping people that want to change their career, want to get their dream role, their dream job into really achieving the goal. So I'm really excited about what Angela will tell us today and talk from her experience. So with that, I don't want to talk a lot. Angela, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Olivia and Annabelle, for that wonderful introduction. I'm really excited to be speaking with everyone today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started here. I'm currently based in Los Angeles, so it's morning for me, but I know that folks are from all over today. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm really excited to be chatting with you all today and to talk a bit more about how to transition into any role in tech. I'll be speaking on my experience a lot through this presentation, so I'll keep my introduction pretty short. But yeah, like Olivia said, I've pivoted my career 5 times now. So I have definitely navigated a lot of the struggles, a lot of the challenges, as well as a lot of the really beautiful achievements of wanting to make a change in your career, going after it, probably failing, and then really achieving that goal. And so we'll talk a bit more through that and talk about some of my advice and guidance and all of my big learnings that I've had throughout this journey. So we will go over, the overall roadmap to transition into any role in tech. So for me, first, it's getting really crystal clear on your direction. We'll talk a bit more about what that looks like. But secondly, then having many conversations. Third, really remembering to take care of yourself first. Fourth is to take a chance on yourself and to keep learning about you. Fifth is testing your hypothesis, and sixth is owning your narrative. So first, I like to start off with this image. I was introduced to this by another career coach, actually, and I really love this imagery because this comes from product design, actually. This is the design squiggle. I did not create this image at all. It is something that's already out there, but if you're feeling uncertain about your career, this image is showing you that means you're doing it right. If you're feeling like you're over here right now and you're just like, I don't really see the end and I don't really know how I'm going to get to that clarity, that means that you are on the right track. I know it does not feel that way. I know it feels like this area is so far away, but because you are in here and you're gaining already that awareness of where you're at and you're choosing to embark on this discovery, embark on this journey, you are going to get here. Life is truly about this part where it's a bit messy, where you're a bit unsure and you're uncertain. But that means that you are doing it right. So I hope that gives folks a bit of solace that if you're confused, you're doing it right. If you're like, I tried something out, it's not working, you're doing it right. So I like to just always start it off with that because I found this to be really helpful, even for myself, even now and even in the past. So getting crystal clear on your direction, what does that mean? How do you go about doing that? So for me, getting crystal clear on your direction means taking inventory first of what is exciting to you, and secondly, what drains you. I like to really break it down by tasks, problems, and environment. And really first just like taking inventory to see what does your life look like right now? What does your career look like? Keeping tabs for each category for what energizes you, what's exciting, what you look forward to, what can you focus doing for a long period of time? That's probably all indicators that this is something that you enjoy. And then secondly, what drains you? So what causes you dread? What do you avoid doing? What do you procrastinate? This is probably something you want to minimize in your life, in your career. And I like to advise when people, go about doing this list at first to really, especially if you're currently confused and you don't know what direction you want to go into, to update this list for a week as you go through your work day. So for me, what that looked like at the beginning of my career, I started off my career working at PwC, so at a Big Four. I started working in public accounting. I was an auditor. I found myself in a place where my work consumed me. I was probably working sometimes 70 hours, sometimes 100 hours a week. And I found that I just did not know what else I should be doing. But I knew that I didn't really love what I was doing at the moment, but I had no idea what that next step was going to be. And so I didn't take a next step for a while. And for me to really decide how to go about taking that next step, I had to first take inventory just like this by really looking through all of my first tasks. What was I doing? And what did I enjoy and what drained me? What did I want to minimize? At the same time, I was auditing a lot of CPG clients, so a lot of retail. So for me, some clients were like Levi's, Bevmo, Stella and Dot. So a lot of like these CPG fashion clients, as well as like consumer goods, like more of the food area as well. And so, there was definitely that part that I did enjoy. And so looking more at like the problems that I was talking about, that also helped me to pick what that clear direct next step should be. And then the third bit, right, is the environment, the culture that you're in. And for me, I took a look and saw what were the parts that I did like from the culture. Obviously, I didn't like the long hours. That was draining to me. I wanted to have a little bit more of a work-life balance. I wanted to have, a life outside of work. And but there were some other aspects that I did enjoy. And so let me show you a bit of what my list ended up looking like when I broke it down like this. Um, so for me, when I looked at the task as an auditor, I realized for me what was energizing was I loved when I was able to do like analysis of like the P&L. That was a very small part of what I was doing on a day to day, but that was the part that energized me a lot. I also loved sitting down with my team, brainstorming what like the next best steps would be, and kind of like having a more collaborative conversation. I also really enjoyed the fact that I was working on multiple different projects at once. And so I was in charge of the inventory financial line, but that broke down into a lot of different things. And so that meant that some parts was talking to clients, some parts was working on spreadsheets. So I liked that aspect of it. And I also loved Excel spreadsheets. I really liked learning how to optimize them. I liked learning how to use better functionalities. And I liked teaching that to my other like coworkers as well. And that was something that was really fun. When I really sat down though and thought about what was draining to me, I hated, and I know is a strong word, but I hated that a lot of the times as an auditor, I worked on a lot of tasks and didn't have any impact because I would pass it on to the client and it was the client's job to execute. And so that I was like, this is just, why are we doing any of this? I also did not like that as an auditor, clients do not want to talk to me. And so trying to get some time to talk to them and then actually having these conversations when someone really was like, please get out of my office, like that was the vibe that I got, and I was like, oh gosh, this is terrible, I don't like this. So getting really clear on that to me helped me see that, okay, great, the direction that I want to be moving into is something um that I really can own an analysis. I'm also a part of the execution aspect of it. Um, and I also saw that, okay, I definitely want to be on the client side. I wanted to be in charge of the whole end-to-end process. And then when I took a look at the industry that I was in, right, the benefit of being an auditor was that I had exposure to a myriad of different clients. And so I found that for me, I actually enjoyed the CPG industry. I loved understanding the way that marketing impacted retail. I loved discussing like the retail industry's shift into e-commerce. This was, I mean, almost 10 years ago. So like e-commerce was not as big of a deal back then. And so that was really cool to me. What I personally found draining was that I didn't really love like my consumable clients. So like Bevmo, where I didn't really see myself as the actual client, that felt like draining to me. And then lastly, of course, the culture. So what I found energizing was that the nice thing again about being at different clients was that when I went to different client spaces, I got to dress according to what their dress code was. And so for me, I loved that I was at a client space called Stella and Dot. They're very like their jewelry, fashion jewelry. And so everyone there, I would say 70% of the people there were women. And so people were more casual, more fashionable. They wore fun earrings, and it was just a lot more like fun. So I loved going there so I could bring personality into my outfits. I also loved like working for people who I thought were really smart. And I loved like being able to learn from them. So that was a culture that I really enjoyed, was that I really liked having these intellectually stimulating conversations. When I really took inventory of what was draining to me about the culture, the long hours were draining. I didn't love that when the manager just told you that you have to do something, you couldn't question it. It was just like a culture of you just got to do it because that's what the manager said or that's what the partner said. And, sometimes you could push back, but in general, to me, it felt like that was not what the culture was. And so I didn't like that. I had so many opinions that I wanted to just be like, this is what I think we should do. And I wanted a culture that had more of that freedom to like speak and really like encouraged that. And so, I mean, I got a bit of that in like my smaller groups, right? So, like my seniors, I really liked my seniors and having intellectually stimulating conversations from them. But having that higher hierarchy where it's like you couldn't speak up to someone who was maybe a partner, I didn't love that. And again, when I looked at the lifestyle of my managers 10 years ahead of me, I did not like that lifestyle. I was like, it is 11 p.m. on a Friday, and you are here in this conference room with me, not with your family or your friends. And I'm like, that's not what I want in 10 years from now for myself. And so by taking inventory of really like my day to day, what I enjoyed, what I didn't enjoy, that helps me to paint a better picture, a better vision for what I wanted. So I would always say like step one for like transitioning and really like taking control of your career is taking inventory of what is it that you like and what is it that you do not like. I think a lot of the times when it comes to job search and when it comes to career, a lot of folks, and this is supernatural, we take the mindset of what can I do? And am I good enough to do this? Versus what do I want to do? And what do I not want to do? Because I think in taking the first mindset when you're like, can I do this? Can I not? You're completely discounting the fact that you are a human who can learn. You have skills that you can leverage. And so by focusing on what can I do and what can't I do, you are already taking yourself probably down a path towards something that you may or may not actually want to do. And so I like to always focus on what do you like? What do you not like? We may not get this perfect vision in the next step, but we can at least move closer to it so you can do it very intentionally. So for me, what that vision looks like and what that helped me, kind of like paint for myself was that I wanted an analyst role where I could see the fruit of my work from analysis to execution and where I made a direct impact on the business. I wanted to really see like, did my strategy work? Did it not work? How could I improve on it? And really have that ownership there. I knew that I liked the analytical work, even though it was a small part of what I did as an auditor. I felt like what I did was good. I felt like this was something I was excited about and something I wanted to learn how to do even better. I also found from looking at, the industry wise, I really liked the fashion beauty, like startup industry. I really liked the movement towards direct to consumer. That was really where we were going. And I loved like the disruptors. And I knew that I needed to work for a company where I liked the product. And that's what would fulfill me. Thirdly, when I looked at the culture, I knew I needed more work-life balance. That was like my number one thing. I wanted to also be able to not only be able to speak up, but be encouraged to speak up. So that was something I looked for when interviewing. And I wanted something with a flatter hierarchy. There could be level ups, but I wanted to make sure that even during the interview process, was I talking as like an entry level person, talking to someone who was higher up? Did I feel like there was a good vibe there? So these are some of the things that helped me paint what would my ideal next step be? What was the vision of what this would be like? And so that helps me to kind of navigate that first transition. Some of the things that I did end up interviewing for that I either got rejected from, took myself out of, was that I ended up, because I was an auditor, I had an accounting background. I also had doubts of, can I be an analyst? And so I interviewed for accounting roles. I remember interviewing for an accounting role at a company called Everlane, getting there. And I think in the interview, he asked me like some basic accounting fundamentals. And I was just like, this is terrible. I don't want to do this, right? And when I came back to my list, I was like, why did I not prepare for these questions? I was beating myself up for it. And when I came back to my list, I was like, because I don't want to do this. That's why I didn't prepare for it. And like, that's why I did not set myself up for success. And so I ended up interviewing at a company called Stitch Fix. That's a personalized styling company. They combine retail and tech, direct to consumer. And I ended up interviewing for an allocation analyst role. It was this almost like bridge between looking at numbers, really being in the retail space, but also still being able to really decide where should our inventory go. So I really had that direct impact. And I ended up finding this role not by just scrolling the job boards. I went and identified what are the companies that fit my ideal of this industry. What are the companies that fit there? And what are the types of roles that would align with this? So after doing that accounting interview at Everlane, I was like, that's not for me. Let me aim for an analyst role. If they require any Excel, that's amazing. At the time, I didn't even know what SQL was. That's something I learned later on. And I ended up creating myself a short list of target companies that I wanted to aim for. And then I just checked like every few days, what are the new roles on here at these companies? And that helped me create like a very targeted selection of companies to aim for, roles to aim for. And then for me, the culture aspect helped me to create questions I wanted to ask in the interview process to see, is this going to be a good fit for me? And I think the fact that I had such a clear picture of what I was looking for, that helped me, really successfully prepare for these interviews because I was all in on the companies. I did a lot of research. I listened to podcasts that the CEOs were on. And I really made sure to become that true expert of that retail industry, of what an analyst role would require in this industry. And so really painting that clear vision for me helped me target my strategy. So I did not send out 100, 200 applications. I maybe sent out 20. And I made sure to make it really targeted. And that in itself made me show up very passionately in the interview. And people could tell that I did the research because I did do the research. People could tell that I really cared about this company and that I was really interested in it because I was. And that all is really what drove me to the finish line and got me into an analyst position at Stitch Fix. That's how I made the first pivot. So getting really clear on my vision and what I wanted is definitely, I think, key in a really successful job search. And so now when I work with clients, that's my first thing, is that I work with people to identify what is your vision? What is your ideal? Knowing that, we may not get all of those things on the list, but how can we get close versus just being like, how can I get just anything? And then you're just leaving it up to other people to decide what should your future be. It's your life, it's your career. And so getting really clear on that vision is not only going to help you have a more strategic job search, you're going to feel more fulfilled. And you're going to just show up so much better in the interview, in the applications, and all of that. So that's always step one for me. Step two, have many conversations with people. So we all know, we've all heard the whole thing about, jobs are found through people. Networking is really important. But it's also like, well, like, how do you go do networking? And what does that even mean? And do you just network when you need to find a job? That's probably when it's top of mind, right? Is when you need to find a job. And so for me, I really think about networking, there's different categories. There's one, just having conversations with your own friends and family, people that you literally talk to all the time now. Then second bucket is going to be talking to folks who are going to be your connectors, seeing who else could you know. And then 3 is going to be, of course, I think this is generally what people think of networking as like maybe those cold outreaches, reaching out to people who you do not know. And like, how do you go about doing that? So, we'll talk about all of that. So first, have many conversations, right? So this image, I like to start with this. So how does this image make you feel? I'll take, like, if you can just write some things in the chat, but like, how does this make you feel? Cozy and warm, yes. Calm, relaxed, yes. So love that. So this really, like, this is the image that I like to have people like start off with, is that this is how you want folks to like feel when you're networking with them. It's all about the warm leads, right? The warmer lead that you can get, the more likely they will respond to you, the more likely that they will help you, the more likely that they are open to being really honest in the questions that you ask. So it's all about the warm leads. So like, how do you even get to warm leads, right? Um, I like to think that it's not about who you know now necessarily, but it's about who you can know. So after you've created this vision, right? In step 1, you created your vision of like what you ideally want. Again, the nice thing about creating the vision is that you can then really clearly articulate to your friends and family, what do you want in the next step? I think oftentimes folks, I've found when I really break down conversations with my clients, when they're like, yeah, I've already talked to my friends. They all know I'm job searching. But I'm like, what are you really saying? Are you just saying, oh my gosh, it's so annoying. Like, I've just been scrolling LinkedIn all day and like, I just need to find a job, right? Like, that's probably what's happening. But when I really get down to it, I'm like, well, did you tell your friend that you're looking for the retail industry? Did you say that you want to do work with more impact and you're looking for an analyst role where you can continue to sharpen your Excel skills and like apply your data visualization that you know how to do? Did you give them that image of like what you're looking for? Because without that vision, people have no idea what leads to even funnel to you. Are you looking to be working in finance? Are you looking to be in ops? Like, maybe there are a bunch of open roles, but it's like, what's actually relevant to you? And so by creating this vision, you also make it much easier for other people to help you. And so I like to say, first, start with sharing your vision with friends and family. Then a good call to action for them is like, ask for connections that they might know in the industry or the role that you're aiming for. Another just valuable resource is to use your alumni network. This is why, I mean, in the US, going to college costs hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially. And so that's why people pay for that, is for this alumni network. This is something that you can find on LinkedIn, and utilize the fact that you guys went to the same school because they probably liked going to that university. So help them remember a fond memory from it. Help them see like, oh yeah, that was a great time. Make them feel good before you ask for their time. So even if you don't really know them yet, that's one way to warm up the conversation. Another way is to be active on LinkedIn. Comment on people's posts. If people are posting on there, you and I know this. If you post on Instagram, if you post on LinkedIn, you're waiting for the likes. You're waiting for comments. You want someone to like or comment something. So do that for them. That'll automatically make them like you more. Um, a fourth way is just overall warming up connections you don't know. So take a look at someone's LinkedIn profile. Find something on there. If they wrote in there about me that they love their dog, if they wrote in there about me that they were the first hire at this startup, literally say that you read that and like, that's so cool. They wrote that, they put that on their profile for a reason. So go ahead and comment on it. Show that, again, you did a bit of that legwork, so that they're like, wow, Angela actually did some research on me. Like, I'll give her a chance. That's the kind of groundwork you're trying to lay by warming them up. So for me, what this looks like was that I really started out with sharing my vision with my friends and family. So I was at Stitch Fix at the time. I was really enjoying the work. We had just IPO'd. I think I was coming up on my 2nd-year anniversary. And I was reaching a point where I plainly wanted more money. I plainly wanted more money. I was in San Francisco, so surrounded by a bunch of people working in tech. I liked that other people got free lunch every single day. These are all, I'm being very honest right now, because they're all just, it was all really driven by ego. I wanted more money. I wanted free food. I wanted more snacks. I wanted this backpack. I wanted more things. And I wanted to go more into tech. I knew, when I did that analysis of what drained me, what energized me, I was learning SQL. I was the main person doing data visualizations. I loved talking to the data scientist on my team. And I wanted to do something a bit more technical. I had expressed this to my manager, but it was just taking longer than I wanted it to. I wanted the money now. I wanted the free food now. I was young and I was impatient. And so I remember it was Friendsgiving, and I had shared this, the vision I had painted was that I wanted to work at a bigger tech company. I wanted the more money. I wanted the food. I wanted to do more technical work. I wanted to do more presentations. I wanted to dive deeper into SQL, deeper into data visualizations. I wanted to be creating dashboards. So for me, it actually started at a Friendsgiving. I shared this vision with my friends. And some of them were like, that's like, how are you going to do that? I wasn't received the best initially. They were just like, okay, yeah, I know you want all these things, but I don't know, Angela, maybe that, I don't know if that's going to happen. And I was like, okay, fine. I was just like, fine, I'm still going to do this, but now you guys know. So it wasn't even received very well at first. But what happened a couple days later was that one of my friends texted me and was like, hey, I know you want it. You're looking to make a move into a bigger tech company. One of my really good friends actually works at Lyft. Do you want to talk to him? And I was like, oh, I thought you were kind of for lack of better words, shitting on me for this. So wow, great. Yeah, I would love to talk to your friend though. And he ended up connecting me with his friend at Lyft. I had a conversation with him, painted him again, my vision, why I was so excited. And he was like, great, I'll refer you. And if the recruiter doesn't get back into contact with you, let me know. I'll send them another message. But here's all this information about the team that you're interviewing for. This is what I think that they would really focus on, and what they think is important. What I think led to such a positive initial conversation with this was because I had a very clear vision of what I wanted. What I wanted my career to look like, what I wanted to do in the role. So I obviously didn't talk about how I just wanted more money, right? I talked more about how I really wanted to utilize SQL in my day-to-day. I wanted to become the SQL master, because I felt like I had become the Excel master. And so I was like, that's what I want. I want to do data visualizations. I really am excited to do more presentations. And I painted this really clear picture of what it is that I'm looking for. And I think because I spoke with such conviction and because I was so certain about what I wanted in this next step, he was like, great, sounds good. And I think again, it comes back to really getting that clear vision, but then also being open to just having conversations and telling people what your goal is. And again, like I said, when I told my friends that, it wasn't received well. They weren't like, that's amazing. My friends are great, but sometimes we like to yank each other's chain. And so that's what happened. But later on, it came back with me with a connection to somebody else. And so I think my biggest learning from that was to just really be open to sharing and be open to not everyone being your biggest cheerleader, but also sometimes they might want to help. People want to be on someone's success story. And so if you can, again, show that you have the conviction, the passion, what you want to do next, people want to hop on board that train. So that's really it. Have as many conversations as you can. Expect to be rejected. Expect for people to ghost you. Expect for people to not reply to your LinkedIn message. Expect for your friends to not be like, oh my God, that's amazing. But then people might still be willing to help you and still want to help you. But really having that conviction in what your vision is, that's number one. And then number two is having conversations and be willing to spread the message of what your goal and your vision is. Third, I like to say this kind of in the beginning, and it aligns with my story pathway, but don't forget to take care of yourself first. You have to literally go do these interviews. You have to literally apply. You have to go do the job. And so if you don't take care of yourself first, I don't really know how you're going to do those things successfully. So really that's one thing I always like to remind folks. Yes, your career is important. Yes, like, taking the next step and creating the career that you always wanted, that is important, but it cannot exist if you do not take care of yourself first. So that really, starts the next step with, at Lyft, I ended up burning out. I don't wish burnout on anyone, but I'm glad that it happened to me. It's easy to say that in hindsight, right? In the moment, I would never have said that to you. It was difficult. It was tough. With Lyft, I had gotten all the things that I had wanted. I had the more money. I had the free food. I had started becoming a SQL master. I was doing the data visualizations, doing the presentations. But I came back to a place where I was working really long hours again. I had forgotten that. That was important to me. And I found myself at a place where I didn't feel the most supported always. Sometimes that was because of myself. I didn't express what I needed. I didn't express the boundaries that I needed. I didn't express when I didn't understand something. I thought, oh gosh, I'm at another caliber now. I need to just figure it out myself. That's the pressure that I put on myself. And I found myself super burnt out. That in combination with losing a family member that I loved, and dealing with just personal things, right? Because life happens. Your career doesn't exist in a bubble. It is you. Your career is one part of your life. There's all these other things. And so combined with losing a loved one, I had reached a point where I was just done. I was like, wow, I don't think that this is for me. And when I went, and again, I did that, I took inventory of why is this the case? What is even going on right now? I found that I got myself here because of ego. I wanted to feel smart. I was generally, and I'm sure many of you have felt this way or have been in this situation, but oftentimes I was, in a room of 10 people, I was the only woman there. And so I felt like, wow, I need to stay and do this because in my head, I was like, I'm leading the charge of analytics for all women because I'm the only woman in this room. And I, at the same time, was like, but I don't really love doing this. It's not bringing me the joy that I thought that it would. And like any experiment, right? You go in with a hypothesis, it doesn't always turn out the way that you think, right? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And in this case, it didn't work for me because it led me to burnout. But why I am glad that it happened was that it made me get honest with myself. It made me reflect and find that what drove me into getting this role wasn't because of something I authentically wanted. It was something that I wanted because I wanted other people to see me as smart. I wanted them to see me as successful. And I thought that would make me feel good. But in actually getting it and having that happen, it didn't. And so it made me get really honest with myself. And then it made me start leading my life really intentionally aligned with myself. I think being really intentional is the key learning out of this whole experience, is because I found that I oftentimes did things, but I didn't really know why I was doing it. And I just kind of was like going with the flow. And this, I started my career off with being very intentional with each of my steps. I lost that. I got lost in the hype of it all and wanting to appear a certain way. It also taught me how to ask for help. And so when reaching burnout, help is absolutely necessary. It's not something that I could have gotten through without asking for help from my friends, from my family, from my coworkers, from my manager. It also made me start to advocate for myself of like, no, this isn't something that is going to go away. I've tried to make it go away and it's not. And to just really also lastly, give myself grace. I remember beating myself a lot of how did I get myself here? How did I end up getting myself to burnout? Why did I do this? And there's a lot of reasons why, right? I've said a few. But at the end of the day, I had to forgive myself for it. I had to give myself the grace of it's okay. It's okay to have an experiment and have the experiment fail. Even if that experiment is in your life, that's literally what's supposed to happen. I like to also remind myself and others that you're literally supposed to fail. Not every decision you make is going to work out. You're supposed to fail because you're supposed to learn. And so that's what I had these are all the things that I can now see after being years away from it, right? But in terms of going through burnout, if anyone is going through burnout right now, whether you're burnt out from a job search, whether you're burnt out in your role right now, whether you're like, am I burnt out? Am I about to be burnt out? These are my main tips for managing burnout. So one, seek support from loved ones, friends, coworkers. Like tell people what is going on, share. We are social creatures. And so this is going to be very important in getting yourself out of burnout. Two is trying to identify what is causing your burnout. So I think the taking inventory, that tool that we talked about first, that's going to be really important here. Some of the other questions that I'd advise you to think through is, do you feel clear on the expectations of your work? Sometimes those expectations and being confused, that causes burnout. Are there conflicts with coworkers that's causing unnecessary stress? Is there a specific person that you're always like, oh my gosh, I do not want to go to them for questions. Oh, I messed something up. I do not want to talk to them. Like, is something like that going on? Do you feel like there's enough support in your current role? Do you feel like you have work-life balance? Do you feel like there's people you can go to if you have questions? Are you engaging in things outside of work? Are you exercising? Are you eating healthy? Are you having social time, spending times with friends? And lastly, do you have enough autonomy to feel like you're in control? Do you feel like your manager is constantly micromanaging you? You have to report out every little thing that you're doing. These are a few things that I have found from working with a lot of different clients that end up causing burnout. And so these are some of the things that I often ask folks now to really start to self-diagnose or diagnose of whether or not burnout is happening. And if it's, yes to any of this, like you can start managing burnout before you are fully burnt out. And the third aspect is to be really honest with yourself and then have an honest discussion with your manager. But first, before you can even talk to your manager, you have to be really sure of like what is going on with you. For me, when I was burnt out, having conversations with my manager was not easy. So I know this isn't an easy thing to tell people to do. You may cry. I've cried in front of managers many times. I did not like it. But it might happen, and that is okay because you are human. But I definitely think my best advice for going to talk to your manager is being clear of what it is that's going on. And so you have to be clear with yourself first. And then after you've talked to your manager, set some more boundaries and try to make this situation work. Decide if there are next steps that you need to take. Do you need to transition to a different team? Should you be exploring options outside of this company? Or are there just boundaries you need to create because there's a certain type of project that just doesn't jive well with you that gives you a lot of like burnout? Really identifying that first and then deciding what the next steps are. For me, that ended up being deciding to leave Lyft. I had reached a point where I just really did not take care of myself for quite a long time. And I needed to just take some time off and take care of myself. And for me, this happened in March 2020, which I think many of you know what happened in March 2020. I had quit my job on March 7th and was like, I'm going to go travel. I had a flight out on March 17th, 2020. That clearly did not happen. And for me, I'm so pleased that it did not happen because I don't think that I could have done the self-reflection, the healing, the taking care of myself by being on the road, being in a foreign country. That's something I did later on. So it happened for me later on, so don't worry. But I'm pleased that, the pandemic shut down those plans for me because I needed to really take care of myself and not distract myself, not do other things. I needed to just focus on me because I had become so disconnected from that. So my fifth learning here, or fifth piece of advice, is to take a chance on yourself and to keep learning about yourself. You're going to be your biggest subject of life that you will ever learn about. You will be the expert. You are the expert now on yourself. And so for me, it meant really getting back to believing that I could do anything I put my mind to. Because after going through burnout, I was not sure of that anymore. I was like I had a hypothesis. I thought I would love this and I would be really good at it. I did not love it. Like, am I just so unaware of myself? Do I just not know me at all? So I needed to really come back to the belief that I can do anything I put my mind to. And so for me, that involved volunteering, that involved spending time with my family, and that involved creating a business. Didn't all start off like that. My time gap, the time I took off, was about 18 months. So it didn't all start off with this. It started off with me just going to therapy, started with me just taking care of myself. But then, it started with me creating a business. In the pandemic, I found that a lot of folks I myself had a lot of plants, house plants, okay? Because we couldn't go anywhere and everyone was just buying plants, buying furniture, redoing their houses and stuff. And so I had 100 plants and I literally went on Facebook Marketplace and was like, this plant does not fit in my house. I need to sell it because there's no room here. And then I found that this one plant got like 20 messages to buy this one plant. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of demand for this one fern. And then I went and took a look at some plant Facebook groups, some plant Instagrams. I just did like a little demand analysis. I looked up on Google how often people Googled the word plants and how that like increased over the last couple months. I was like, okay, that's interesting. Let me just do a couple more tests, right? So I tested with my one fern. And then I was like, let me sell a couple more plants. I have 100 of them just that I have. So let's just try to sell them. These 8 plants I sold within like 2 days. So I was like, maybe there's a business here. And really, for me, doing this plant business, it was more out of like, this is fun, this is interesting. And I was like really learning about myself that I loved that entrepreneurial spirit. I, you know, this is me at one of my pop-ups. I started having pop-ups at farmers markets, at like outdoor events. After doing it for like 8 months, I realized I didn't really want to be a plant mom for a living. It was a lot of labor. I did, again, another one of those, what's energizing me, what's draining me from this experience. I love the entrepreneurship aspect of it. It was fun. It was scary. It was exciting. It was really cool. And it was really cool for me to see that I created this from nothing. I created this myself, and I can just literally make into reality whatever I want. But when it kind of came down to it, I realized that I missed working with professionals. I didn't love that my inventory depended on me watering and caring for hundreds of them. But I realized that I love teaching people how to care for their plants. I love talking to people. I love talking to customers. And so from doing this, I was like, wow, even though I'm not going to be a scaled up plant business, I realized I love entrepreneurship. I love teaching people things. And reflecting on my other roles that I had found that I always had this belief that I could find another job. Once I was ready, I was like, I can find another job after making several pivots myself. And so I also still found, even though I was in my head, right? We all have these negative thoughts. I thought I was an unemployed loser. Even though I thought that, my friends would still come to me for advice on doing their resume, advice on interviewing. I was still the friend everyone went to, even though I thought of myself as the unemployed loser. And so I was like, wow, maybe there's something here. Maybe I can explore, helping people find jobs. I thought about being a recruiter, helping companies find people, right? But I didn't like that as much. I wanted to help an individual person find their job, help them in their career. And so that led me to testing out this hypothesis. You got to just test things out, right? You have to try it out and see, does this work? Does it not? I always say the best way to find out is to try it out yourself. The second best way is to talk to someone who's done it. You can't try everything out yourself, right? So you're going to have to spend some time talking to some people to really see, should I invest more time into this? And so what I actually ended up doing was that once I discovered, okay, maybe there's something in this career coach area, I literally just went on LinkedIn and I messaged a few people and started having conversations with them. I warmed them up. I took a look at their LinkedIn, saw what could I possibly comment on from here. And I was like, I saw this one person who grew up in my very similar area in Pasadena, which is a smallish city in LA. And I was like, great. I'll just comment on that and be like, wow, I see you're in Pasadena. I grew up in 10 miles from you. I would love to ask you about your career. Do you have 15 minutes? I'd really appreciate it. But again, warming it up, even with one sentence, that's going to do a long way. And so after doing that, I realized that for me, career coaching is something that I wanted to try out. I wanted to see, can I actually do this? And not necessarily as an entrepreneur at first, maybe for another company. Some pieces of advice that I have here really is it doesn't all make sense to run multiple experiments at the same time. So again, be clear on your vision, right? Have one direction. Don't have 5, because if you have 5, they're all going to get mixed up. You're going to get confused. Prioritize and test one at a time. And then commit until you find information that makes you disinterested. And it's okay if it doesn't turn out the way you expected it to. Lastly, my last piece of advice is to really own your narrative. That's really the biggest thing in transitioning into any role in tech, outside of tech, anywhere, is that you get to be your own storyteller. Even though at one point I thought myself as an unemployed loser, right? That's not what I'm saying in my narrative. We can all think these things. We're human. We are our own worst critic. That does not mean you need to share out your worst critic thoughts to everybody else. It's always easier to see in hindsight, right? But the nice thing about hindsight is that you can then see that invisible string that draws each one of your experiences together. So when really thinking through your own narrative, your own story, what ties all of these experiences together, think through first, what is your vision, right? What is your vision and what are the key skills this new role requires of you? That's going to help you outline what are the key things you need to find in your story. And then secondly, what makes you interested in this role? Passion, right? It comes back to passion, having that clear vision. Showing interest is something that is like not valued enough. In the job search, as I've interviewed so many people now, having passion is like going to be a clear differentiator. Um, and then as you look at your prior experiences, take a look, what inspired this interest? What from each part of those roles that you had is linked to this? So for me, I'm a career coach now. I'm an entrepreneur. What I do as a career coach is that I talk to people all day long. That is what I do. What I have found from each of my different roles was that PwC, I liked talking to clients. I didn't love talking to clients who didn't want to talk to me, but I really liked it when they did. At Stitch Fix, I really loved working in a cross-functional team. I really liked helping people. At Lyft, I loved doing presentations. I loved being able to express my ideas, to be able to teach people things. Even as a plant owner, I love talking to customers. I love teaching them how to take care of their plants. This is something that you can see clearly now because I have done the work to analyze what from each of these experiences did I actually have of that. Sometimes it was a very small part of my role. Sometimes it was a big part of my role. But really taking a look, once you have that list of what does this new role require, how have you done this? Have you done this? Are there any small ways? And then really thinking through, why did you move from X to Y? How can you tell a good story there of like what inspired you? And then again, always address any work gaps and talk about why that makes you an even better candidate. If you're not working right now, talk about how now that you're like recharged and energized to go back into the workplace, that you are like ready to go. You've spent some time like learning X skill, Y skill. Talk about how that's actually an advantage for you, right? So that's the nice thing of you get to own your narrative. You get to draw that invisible string that ties everything together. And that's really the key aspect is having that confidence, having that clear vision, and then being able to see what is that string that ties everything together. I know I only have 1 minute, so I want questions. Thank you all for giving me your time, letting me share my story. I hope this was helpful, but yeah, I would love any questions.
So first of all, thank you, Angela, for sharing so openly everything that you have experienced. It was a super inspiring story, and I think everybody was able to take something out of it. So please take this chance and ask questions to Angela. We will also put all the details, how you can contact Angela and everything on our page. And we will also share some additional details afterwards on LinkedIn via email. But please don't forget to either use the chat or the Q&A now to have some question. There are already some questions, so I will just read through the first one in the Q&A box. Hi, Angela. Can you talk a little bit about the stigma, which I think is becoming more accepted, but around switching jobs, careers frequently versus staying at a company for a long time, even though you have a different vision?
Yeah. So I think with the stigma, I think first acknowledging that some people are going to believe that, like just knowing that, but really coming back to your why. Why is this next step going to make a lot more sense for you, a lot more sense for your career? And again, having that conviction of, being able to have a new role where your day to day is more like X, being able to be an industry that's more like Y. Why are you excited about the why? that's really the best way to overcome any of the stigma, is being certain about why you are making this transition and why it's more aligned with you and what you want in your career, as well as being clear and honest with what you have enjoyed and what you have not enjoyed from your current role, and how you are trying to craft a career that's more aligned. Um, I think that, again, at the end of the day, we're all humans, right? And I think there's a lot that can be said about someone who's just going for it, going for something that is aligned with them. But yeah, there is going to be stigma. There is definitely, that's going to exist. Some people are going to believe that. You cannot control that, though. What you can control, though, is your narrative. You can control your actions, and you can control what you end up doing. And so that's what I would say about that. Expect that there's going to be stigma, but prepare, what your ideal is, and be able to defend your actions.
There is another question from LinkedIn. And the question is, did you come across any dumb, bad micromanaging bosses, although you were aware that you're smarter than them? And if yes, how did you deal with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So how did I deal with micromanaging managers? I think for me, it was about, and this did not come easy, but giving upward feedback, of, what were the boundaries? When would I update them? Right? Instead of expecting them to come to me, like being afraid of, like, oh, when are they going to slack me? When do I need to send them this? Being more upfront myself with being like, this is going to be done on, today's Thursday, this is going to be done on Monday. I will send this to you at 2 p.m. And so just like getting ahead of it has been helpful. And then I think the providing upward feedback, I think that's going to really depend on the person, right? If they are open to hearing that feedback or not, that's going to be a huge aspect of it. And so again, I come back to focusing on what is in your control. You are able to control how you communicate, what you say out there. So I think definitely in terms of micromanagers, instead of like waiting or being afraid of like, when are they going to contact me, tell them when you will contact them. And just put it, like, own it yourself already, and just be like, if it's going to be, you think they want it at the end of today, but you're like, that's not possible, just straight up tell them, like, this can only be done by Friday at 3 p.m. because of X, Y, and Z. And then see what questions that they have. But just own that narrative yourself and like get ahead of it. That would be my main thing. I think the second aspect, like for yourself, is to, one, I would say venting is good, but venting can also be bad. Venting can make you just feel even worse about it. And so I would say, it's okay to vent with like maybe with a friend who doesn't work at the company, but like I don't advise you to have like venting circles at work. I used to have that, and I would say that all that did was make us all more angry. And didn't actually help. It didn't make me feel better. It felt good in the moment, but it made me more angry and more annoyed of the whole situation. So that would be my biggest pieces of advice, is to like vent with like time limits. Like give yourself 5 minutes, and don't overindulge with it. Venting is like candy. You can just like keep doing it.
Thank you so much for sharing. We are at time. I see, other than question, I don't see any other question, just how amazing the session was. So thank you again, Angela. Also, maybe as the last words, how can we contact you? What is best for you? What's working for you?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Olivia. So great to speak with everyone. And yeah, if you have any other questions, best way to reach out to me is on LinkedIn. You can find me at Angela Lau. You can look up Angela Lau Career Coaching. It's me with a green background. Send me a DM, send me a message. Happy to answer any other questions. And I'm so pleased that you guys invited me into your space, and it was so great chatting with you all.
Thank you so much. And for the next events, please watch your LinkedIn feed, and we will announce it for the next year. We are always looking for speakers, so do not hesitate to either reach out to Annabelle or myself. And we are so much looking forward to the next year to have more Data Plus Women events.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.